Hello and welcome to Deep Thought Shallow Plots. She's Erika, and she really likes horror.
And she's Katy, and she really likes to overanalyze things. So, Katy, what are we overanalyzing today?
We are diving deep into The Descent.
God, okay.
This is probably the only movie where we're going to be able to make that joke.
It's true.
Because we're never going to do any ones about actual divers into the ocean.
No, definitely not, no.
I let us do plants. I'm not letting us do the ocean.
We did plants?
We did like the Hallow.
Oh, I guess. Okay, yeah, sure.
We did have the tree and Evil
That's
Dead.
true. That's true. Also that, yeah. But yeah, no, definitely no water-based horror. So if anyone's just dying for us to do something like Jaws, it's not going to happen. So
actually, I'd do Jaws because I really like sharks. But that's it. Sharks are my one exception.
You contain multitudes. Okay.
I contain multitudes. So I just think sharks are cute.
Sharks are cool. So maybe Jaws, but like
nothing else. Not Meg.
Not Meg. Yeah, you're right. No, well, the Meg's not. Or it's not even the Meg. It's just Meg.
I know. I was careful. I said Meg.
I know you did. Well, it's not good. So it's okay.
Yeah. Or that one with Kristen Stewart where she's under the water.
Underwater. Yeah.
It's called Underwater.
It's called Underwater. No.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Not that one. Yep. Love it.
Okay. No, we're going to talk about this scary movie.
We're diving deep.
We're diving deep into the caves of not Borum Caves.
Not Borum Caverns. Yeah.
Did you, the first time going back, the first time you watched this movie, did you think it was really scary?
No.
I'm easily scared. I do have my jump scare count.
Right.
It is at 8.
Yeah.
Which is pretty high. I easily jump, but that's pretty high.
That's pretty high.
That's pretty high. But at the same time, I wasn't like scared. I just have an easy jump reaction to
it's
things.
True. And
I jump when like a cat walks by me too quickly.
Sure.
Like
and also like, I mean, as somebody who watches a lot of horror movies, like you start to be able to see the jump scares coming a mile away.
Even when I know they're coming, I still jump, but like
stop. Yeah, it doesn't stop it. It doesn't help really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and there are so many jump scares in this movie that are like not scary things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if a jump scare count is really like the most effective way of like,
Yeah. I go by, do I get nightmares?
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
Or rather, do I have a hard time sleeping because I keep imagining something scary coming to get me
yeah.
in the darkness?
That's
and that did not happen.
No.
I was not scared of these crawlers.
I think for me, movies that have done that for me are, at least the first time I saw it, The Last Exorcism. It was really scary the first time I saw it. And Insidious, the first time I saw Insidious.
Is that the one that we watched the third one of?
Yes.
Or the fourth one
of?
Yeah. Because that one gave me that one freaked me out.
That was just the third one.
And that was just the third one.
It was
so
way
just
watered
imagine
down by
me
the
trying
third
to watch the first one.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, Pam.
So we decided to do this movie as to overcorrect, right? Because we did The Thing, which is a great movie.
Manfest.
But a total manfest, right? So we figured, okay, let's do a not great movie.
That's a woman fest.
That's a woman fest.
Lilith Fair.
Yeah. But yeah, we were talking before we started recording that like, as I was doing research and like reading reviews and like film analyses of this movie, it was like, it seems so highly regarded.
Yeah.
And I mean, was like,
we even just asked sound guy Matt if he like remembered this movie and if it was scary to him. And he was like, yeah, what I remember about this movie is that it scared me.
And I was like, fascinating.
Yeah. There are just tons of people online who are like, one of the best movies of the early 2000s.
Yeah, I took a couple of like, I mean, there were so many, but these were the two, like, the ones that really stood out to me. Hannah Bonner says, The Descent remains one of the scariest, most inventive horror films of the 21st century, all with a cast of kick-ass women.
Yeah, I have notes.
I don't completely agree. Then I also, this one's a little shady because I got this from an article that had no author tied to it. It's from a website called Cinephilia and Beyond. Yeah. And it's great to see a horror film that doesn't degrade itself with cardboard cutouts of female characters.
Yeah.
The central protagonists of Sarah and Juno, calling Juno a protagonist, that's a choice.
We'll get into that.
Are developed with insight and care, which means that we get people made of flesh, blood, and brains. This makes it easier for us to connect, sympathize, and become absorbed in the narrative. I disagree with almost everything.
You know, it's
almost
actually
everything.
That's
in that.
another reason why it's like another weird overcorrection from The Thing,
Yeah.
which got so many complaints about like how interchangeable and flat all of the characters were,
Yeah,
and how
yeah,
like
yeah.
people couldn't really tell the characters apart and stuff.
That is honestly exactly how I feel with this movie. We watched it together.
Oh,
How
yeah,
many times I ask you,
Wait, which
one
one's
is
Beth?
that again? Is that Beth or is that Sam? And then
Who's
he's like,
Becca?
it's Becca. Like, I don't, who, and I think it's hard because we'll get into this, but I think what made it so hard for me to tell these women apart is that like, we really don't get to know them before they have dissented, right? So like
Dissented.
right. Well, like we get that opening scene with them like whitewater rafting to show
which is-
like, look how adventurous they are.
And look, one of them's having an affair with another one's husband.
yeah. And then that husband dies pretty quickly after that.
Yeah.
But then like, and then they have that one scene that's like the night before they go on their trip.
And it's like, oh, they're all friends.
I guess, but like, you know, but they don't really
Distinguish themselves.
They don't distinguish themselves. I don't really get to know, like there's just kind of passing mentions, you know? And so it's just like, I don't know who these people are. And then once they get into the caves, they're all wearing like the similar gear and like helmets. So like I cannot differentiate who they are.
I didn't have as difficult of time.
Straight up, a lot of them are just blonde.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not have as difficult a time as you did. Partially because, and actually this was a intentional part of the casting, a lot of them had different accents, which made it easier for me.
This is true.
Like they did that on purpose. Like I guess to make the movie seem more quote unquote cosmopolitan.
I guess, whatever.
But sure.
Yeah.
But no, so I didn't have too hard of a time telling them apart, and I kind of did get their different personalities and things like that. Like, I mean, as far as horror movies go, I think they were okay as, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think they were like the most deeply well-written characters
really
ever, but
don't
like
think
for
so.
a horror movie, I think they did pretty well.
Fair.
But there were some scenes in the caves where it's Sarah gets knocked out and she's out for a while when like Juno and Holly are first fighting it, and then Beth dies, that whole thing.
Right.
And I spent the whole time being like, wait, who hit their head?
Yeah.
Who are we missing right now?
Yeah, what?
And I did that on the second watch too. I was like, so wait, was that Sarah? I'm still not sure.
And I
it
think-
must be Sarah because she's not around. But
I wonder how much of that really has to do with the editing, because, you know, like I think why this movie really speaks to a lot of people is like, again, kind of like those primal instinctual fears of like tight enclosed spaces and like darkness, you know? And so like the movie is very dark. And so like it's straight up hard to tell like, wait, who was that? And like kind of in that last scene where they are like kind of in that last battle royale with the crawlers, you know,
when
it's like
just
really
Juno and
hard to
Sarah.
tell who's doing what.
Yeah.
Because like
I know, I wish I could see that scene better, because I think they're being really badass and cool.
and like it's a dark scene and the editing is super
it's
choppy.
super jumpy.
Yeah.
I'm like, who just did the what?
Yeah, what? Yeah.
How'd
like,
they what?
And then all of a sudden Sarah's gone and you're like, wait, where did Sarah go?
Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess on the one hand, you're like, yes, it's disorienting, just like being lost in a cave or something. Like, I can see the intentionality behind it. But, I mean, you know, that is one of the symptoms of being deep down underground is like confusion.
Right, as one of them tells us.
I'm going to say Becca?
I don't know.
I think it was Becca.
One of the scholars. Spoilers. We're playing archetypes later. So, I mean, yeah, should we just like jump in with talking about the main protagonist?
Should we give a quick plot?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we kind of did.
Yeah.
They go down into the cave. They get lost in the cave. Weird caveman creatures attack them.
Yeah, I've seen them called crawlers.
Yeah, I think the movie people call them crawlers, like behind the scenes. I think that's how they were referred to, because they're crawling through caves or whatever.
So, it's pretty obvious that like Sarah is our main protagonist person.
Yeah, she's our final girl anyway. She's the
She
only
is our
one
final
who
girl.
maybe makes it out in the end, depending on the version you see.
Right, which ending you've seen. Yeah. So we get set up that Sarah is like experiencing quite a bit of trauma. With what I will give, it's like do you ever do this with if you have like a meeting about one of your students? Like if they're like on an IEP or 504, and like they're the person running the meeting is like, let's start with strengths.
Oh.
Right? It's always the way. Like, you know what? So
What's going well? What's
going well? And so like, if I'm honestly not a particularly huge fan of this movie, but like if I were to start with like what's going well, I would say that like this movie does lean into the taboo of killing a child.
Yes, which you like.
I love it. Yeah, so they do kill that child pretty early on. So props for that.
Oh, and
snaps for that.
This was not the movie's fault. I'm just thinking about it in terms of us getting confused by the movie.
Yeah.
I was telling you how the first time I watched it, I did not realize the husband also died in that car accident.
Yeah. No,
I was like, died. I thought that was the kid we saw die, but I guess it was the husband we saw die.
They both die.
Yeah. Regardless.
So
I was just like, where's her husband in all this? What's he doing?
And I think it's really interesting when they do this in movies where like a woman loses a lot of people, like a spouse and a child, and then like for the rest of the film is really only concerned with the child.
Yeah,
it's like fuck your husband, I guess.
Yeah, she has one thing where she says something wistfully about her husband, where she's like, "Love every day,
love each day,
each day." Something, whatever that fucker's name is, used to say.
Paul
used to say. Which is really just a setup so that we know that Juno was definitely cheating with him.
Which we kind of already know.
Yeah, we know. We don't need her to have that little necklace.
So the husband is neither here nor there.
Yeah, he's there, but then he's gone.
Yeah. And like the only guy in this movie, actually.
Yeah, unless you count the crawlers.
No.
I feel like the main thing that they're trying to do with Sarah is like, okay, so she's this person who's grieving and has a lot of trauma associated, which, yeah. Obviously.
Yeah.
But then they're like showing it through these moments of like unreality.
Yeah.
Where she's like hallucinating a lot. She's like hearing her daughter's voice or like having dreams of like her daughter blowing out the candles or something.
Because her birthday was coming up. Yeah.
Anyway, she's hallucinating.
Yeah.
And she chooses to go into a dark, scary cave where hallucinations can happen just because that happens sometimes when you're in a dark, scary cave.
Yeah. When all that like sensory deprivation, I think your brain will start to fill in some blanks. But I think it's worth noting right now that you and I have never been in a cave. No. So I wouldn't know.
I mean, not in that
capacity.
Degree of a cave.
I remember going into like one of the lava caves. I was pretty young, and I remember it being very cold. And also, like, I was pretty astounded by how dark it was. And, like, we didn't even really, like, actually really get in that cave. So, like, I imagine that that's probably the case. But, like, I think it's just worth noting that you and I have never been in a cave.
Well,
not like
in
that.
all fairness, I think of most of the movies we've watched.
That's true.
There's very few things that we have done.
I've never been to Antarctica.
Yeah.
I have
never been in the roads of Southeast Florida.
No, I've never been to Florida. No. All right, that's a good point. But
I imagine the caves are scary. I just don't imagine if I'm somebody who is like dealing like a year out from my family dying and I'm still having hallucinations. I'm gonna go into a cave where like hallucinations can happen.
Right, and also like a year out is not very long.
It's not long
to have lost her husband and her only child.
Yeah. I mean, a year out from my dog dying, I was still pretty fucking useless.
Exactly.
like my husband and child?
Yeah. No, there's no way. Yeah.
But, you know, but I mean, I guess if you're somebody who always goes into caves and white rider rafts and things, like that's her normal life.
Right. Because I think that's worth noting because that's how we are introduced to most of the characters first. Three of them. Not Holly, though, right?
Yeah, not Holly and not the sisters.
That's right. Okay. So that's how we're kind of introduced to at least like the main characters, Sarah and Juno, right?
Yeah. And then Beth is there too, because Beth is always there too.
And then Beth is there, yeah. Who actually I think is in my notes is like just kind of there. Hold on. What did I say
she's
Beth?
A teacher. You should show solidarity to Beth.
Literally, my first note for Beth is kind of no one. Anyway, so that's how we meet these characters is like they're whitewater rafting, and so we get to establish sort of their like adventurous spirit and athletic prowess, right?
Juno even has a line later where she's like, that's what we always say. If there's no risk, then there's no point or something like that.
Right.
That they're like purposely risk seekers. And they like the danger. It's a thing they do.
Right. So that like is probably part of Sarah's personality.
Yeah.
But also, Sarah, girl, like these people are not your friends. Maybe
Beth is her friend.
Beth is her friend, but Juno is not her friend.
Juno is not her friend.
No. The things that the other characters in this film ask of Sarah are things that like a friend would not ask of a friend.
Yeah.
Right? Especially knowing what Sarah has been through. Yeah.
I mean, supposedly Juno set up this caving thing as like a thing for Sarah.
No.
Like, that's wild to me. But I
think,
mean, if that's a thing that you like to do, I guess you would set up a caving trip as a present.
But I think, like, and we'll mention this when we start to talk about Juno, is that, like, I think a lot of this is, like, what she thinks would be good for Sarah. Again, like, without
actually thinking about who Sarah is.
And, like, communicating with Sarah.
Like, what would you like to do for our yearly risk-taking trip?
As someone who I claim to be friends with.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but Beth is mostly a pretty good friend to Sarah.
Beth the one who helps her out when she kind of does start to freak out?
When she freaks out, she gets the one really claustrophobic moment where Sarah gets kind of stuck right before the tunnel caves in. But the way that Beth comforts Sarah is wild to me.
Yeah.
It's because she starts talking about how the worst thing that could have happened to you has already happened.
A year ago, by the way.
Yeah, a year ago. And she's literally like, you've already lost everything and you're still here. So, like, there's nothing left to be afraid of. And I'm like, that is nihilistic, first off.
Yeah.
Because it's like, who cares if Sarah dies? Because you already lost your daughter. So that was your whole reason to live. So who cares if you die, Sarah? But also, like, is this what Sarah needs to be reminded of right now when she's like...
Right, but I could also kind of see that being oddly helpful.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it works.
Motivating.
It does work.
Like, you're right. The worst thing that could ever happen to me has already happened to me.
So, like,
you know?
I do wonder that because the other thing we get about Sarah is that she drives so recklessly and fast.
Oh, yeah.
Which is wild to me as somebody who lost her family in a car crash. But then I'm like, actually, no. She probably, survivor's guilt, she probably thinks that she was also meant to die in that car crash.
Yeah.
You know? Like, she probably likes to tempt fate by driving crazy. I could totally see that being, like, a trauma response or, like, a desire to join her family.
Even with other people in the car.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because even when she gets out of the cave and she starts driving crazy, it's a little bit more understandable because she's freaked out.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, girl, you're in a car. They're not coming after you. And you're fine. Yeah. You just fought to survive this cave. If you die in a fucking car crash right now, like, girl,
what are we
think
doing?
about it.
Yeah.
Think about it. And then, of course, she hallucinates Juno because she's just hallucinating this whole time. And they just let her wander off on her own and skip lunch. This woman whose family just died, they let her wander off and skip lunch when you're in a cave.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Friends.
Yeah, these people are not her friends. I'm sorry. Yeah, so, like, she's just so obviously not okay.
Yeah.
And, like, maybe, you know, they could have, like, there's so many other kind of fun, adventurous, outdoorsy, active things they could have done that, like, wouldn't have been as dangerous as exploring in uncharted cave system.
Yeah, I mean, if it had been what Juno said they were doing and they went to Borum Caverns, then maybe sure.
Yeah.
Where they filed their fucking flight plan for. Oh, Juno. I will say, though, that I don't really understand or, like, I understand coming from, like, thinking about Sarah, but, like, as a larger movie, I don't really understand what all these, like, hallucinations and moments of unreality really do for this film.
Yeah.
Like, they don't really pay off.
No.
Except for in the alternate ending.
Yeah, but even then, they're just there to show us that Sarah is, like, has a very loose grip on reality.
And therefore should not be in this cave.
But, like, should never have gone into that cave in the first place.
But it doesn't really pay off.
But then we also, I kind of...
Because it never, like, gets her in trouble.
No, she's still, like, the one who survives, right?
I mean, the only thing is that for people who haven't seen, who are, like, listening to us talk about this, and you're like, I've seen this movie, what alternate ending?
Oh.
There's the American version where she gets out of the cave. And then the original UK version where then she's out of the cave and then she wakes up and it was all a hallucination. Her getting out was a hallucination. And then she hallucinates her daughter again and the camera pans back and she's, like, surrounded by crawlers. She's still in the cave. She never got out. Yeah. So, like, it pays off in that alternate ending.
Yeah.
Where it's like she actually almost even seems, like, content to stay in the cave because she has her daughter with her.
Yeah.
She's like okay with death or whatever. But, like,
but then of course with that ending, then there is no sequel, which I did watch and I cannot wait to tell you all about. But then I think really the only way it really works for me is that Sarah already has this very loose grip on reality. Dealing with a lot of trauma. And, like, they do kind of mention that, like, that was a pretty tough experience for all of them.
Yeah.
Right? And so I almost kind of wonder if, like, Sarah is sort of, like, the linchpin that, like, they all kind of devolve
Oh, around
like to all kind of like lose their grip on reality, like to kind of match Sarah.
There was somebody who was talking about another review that I saw. I don't remember which one, talking about how like it's doubly called The Descent because we're also watching their descent into madness.
Right.
Which was another one where I was like, are we? Do any of the other ones?
Did we watch the same movie?
Because first off, Sarah starts out and ends the same amount of mad. Like she hallucinates at the beginning and she stays hallucinating. And like none of the other ones really go crazy. They just die. So like,
exactly.
Were we? I don't know.
Are we?
There was one fan theory actually that would have had payoff, but it literally is a different movie.
Yeah.
Which is that the crawlers are all hallucinations of Sarah's.
Yeah. Or like, to me, I kind of had this thought and I was like, there's no way people haven't thought of this already, that like they are a shared hallucination amongst the group.
Oh, that would work too. But then who's actually doing the killing?
Exactly. So
I
like
guess
it actually doesn't really work.
If the idea is that Sarah's hallucinating them, then she's also the one who's killing them all.
But she's not.
But I mean, I've never seen her and a crawler in the same room when other people are there. When the crawlers kill Holly and when Juno kills Beth. Yeah, until the very end with Juno.
Yeah.
But then she does kill Juno. So.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, it almost works, but not quite. And I guess the director, I can't think of his name right now. I guess he actually talked about that and how like he did have a part where he actually had one of the crawlers in the background in that opening hospital scene and then took it out because he was like, that doesn't really work.
Okay.
So like I guess it was kind of on his mind.
Okay.
But it doesn't make sense why Juno would accidentally kill Beth and then Beth would be like, Juno killed me, without also being like, and also Sarah, you're going crazy and killing everybody else. You know, like it doesn't work.
Think about that.
It'd be an entirely different movie, but maybe a good one. I don't know. That's all I have to say about Sarah.
Sure.
We should touch on Holly briefly.
Oh, Holly, yeah.
Because she's her she's the one who's not technically part of the friend group, really.
Yeah, she's introduced as Juno's protege.
Yeah.
Which, like, tell me more about that relationship.
Respect. Is Juno... I'm like, is Juno like... caving instructor or something, and she's teaching
or like
Holly how to be
outdoor wilderness survivor type person. Yeah,
we literally. I don't fucking know.
Well, what does Holly says something about like liking to climb things.
Yeah, she's like, I've climbed all the somethings in Glasgow.
She's like ran out of things to climb in Galway.
That was it. Yeah,
and so she's like going to climb other things. So she's like more of a climber.
Yeah.
Which is involved in this caving. Like, they do have, like, a lot of climbing gear.
Yeah.
So, she's a climber. And just, like, this is really one of my bigger issues with this film is, like... And, you know, it's important to be able to suspend your disbelief. But, like, my example is, like, with all the Paranormal Activities, which you've never seen, and you don't need to.
Okay.
But what I really enjoy about that franchise is that, at least in my personal opinion, every single movie, they have a different, believable reason as to why, because it's all found footage, right? As to why it is being filmed. For found footage. And so, like, what I don't, like, these characters, like Holly and Juno specifically, are, like, meant to be these, like, wilderness...
Yeah, they're like experts or whatever, or this is like the thing that they do.
And they do the stupidest
shit.
Most unsafe stuff that like a wilderness professional would
never do.
And
like in a way that not only puts themselves at risk, but like puts everybody else at risk too. Like they're not team players.
And I'm just not buying it. You know, it's like what happens with where they like it's kind of early on in the film before the crawlers show up that like they think or like they think they're finding a way out and Holly just fucking runs for it without assessing the situation first. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, Juno's like racing after her being like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like this is not, and like, oh, look at that. Holly falls into a fucking hole.
And
like she just falls into a hole.
Hurts her foot.
Yeah.
And then is like kind of like lame for the rest of the movie.
I also love like her switch from
until she dies.
When they first have the cave in and somebody's like, how's everybody doing?
Yeah.
And Holly's response is, don't fucking touch me, I'm fine. Because she's such like an independent, like
you're not
bravado,
you're
whatever.
Not fine.
And then the moment she actually gets hurt and falls into that hole, she's like, somebody fucking get down here, I need somebody help.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, where'd all that bravado go?
Yeah.
But no, she just like, also, lolls at Juno literally letting Holly down because she like sort of is holding Holly and before she falls in that hole.
Yeah.
She like catches her for a second and then lets her go. And I'm like, yep, that's Juno.
That's Juno.
Letting everybody
right.
down. Yeah. No, but Holly's insane. She hears, she's going through that one tunnel.
Yeah.
The first one that ends up caving in.
Yes,
she hears
a
rumble. And she doesn't tell anybody else.
No.
She doesn't back up. She doesn't keep going and then be like, hey, let's wait for a second. I think I just heard something. Let's make sure this is safe.
Yeah.
Like, what?
No.
And then, it's going back to your found footage thing. Yeah. Why does Holly keep filming shit? When they're like the moment the thing caves in and they're like in a life or death scenario, she still has her camera out filming shit.
Yeah.
I wonder who she thinks is going to be watching that.
Right, or what that's for.
I mean, I wonder if some of it is just because, like, they make the joke in that the night before scene where they give Beth a hard time for being over 25. And they're calling her old and shit because she's over 25. Like, not even 30, 25. 25. So I'm wondering if a large part of this movie is that they're all just really young.
Yeah.
And Holly, unlike the other girls, has had maybe no experience with death, and so she has that kind of like teenager,
right?
Gotta be young forever. Nothing's gonna like.
But it's just like, I'm like not. I prefer the term indoorsy. I identify as indoorsy.
Yes.
But like, I can imagine that like if someone like Holly is like this professional climber, like this avid caver and like doing all of this stuff that like the people who are like that are very like always safety first.
Otherwise, they don't get very far in
Otherwise, they don't get to do it. Yes, exactly. So like, and then I think that also kind of happens as they're kind of like, they're driving, they're finally at the place and like they haven't gone into the cave just yet. And it's probably Beth or Becca, who's like,
listing off all the rules.
You can get dehydrated. You can, have hallucinations. You can get disoriented, claustrophobic. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then like Juno's like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, Juno,
one of them
isn't this your job?
Yeah, one of them literally was like, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Juno or Holly. I don't remember. But
I think it is Juno.
Yeah.
And then later, Juno's like, hey, guys, safety first. And I'm just like, you don't get to do both.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Juno.
Yeah. She's like, it's all about the risk. Yay, danger. And then like, no, Holly, don't run ahead. It's like, she's your protege. She learned from watching you.
Seriously. Oh my God, Juno.
I mean, yeah. Should we talk about some moments of Juno's like stupid bravado?
Yes. My first note for Juno is hot and dishonest.
My favorite kind of woman.
Yeah, right. Because she is like, she's crazy hot. Like, let's get real.
Yeah.
And then like also kind of at like again in that first third of the film, like when they're all at the cabin, right? We've got a cabin in the woods.
Yes.
By the way, they're all in the cabin, and then like. Then it's the next morning, and Juno's going on a run, and I'm like, "Why are you going on a run?"
Yeah.
Anyway, and then she like comes back and she finds who are the two in the cabin that are 1,000%. Oh, Holly and Sam.
Yeah, Holly and Sam, 100% lesbian inning.
100%, yeah. And Juno comes in, and then like she does this weird like sort of show-offy
sexy stretch. Yeah, just like look how limber.
Look, I can get my leg all the way up to my head. And then what really gets me is she only does it to one leg. She doesn't do it to the other.
Yes, because it's just to show off.
Anyone would know that what you do to one side, you have to do to the other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Juno.
She's just trying to be hot.
She's just trying to be hot and then dishonest.
My favorite line from Juno,
yeah.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but one of them that she has is, relax, I've never been lost in my life. Like, girl.
Liar. That's a lie.
Liar. That's a lie.
That has to be a lie, yeah.
Like, no. Especially considering the kind of adventuring you do. I bet you purposely get lost sometimes.
Right.
Like, I bet that's a part of who you are. No, and then her whole reason for going into this cave, because it turns out, twist, which actually I think is a kind of a good twist for a movie, that it's not the Borum Caverns that they thought they were going in, that were, like, safe or whatever. It's a different cave system that nobody's been in before. And, like, Juno wanted them to do it so that they could claim this place and name it.
Yeah, but then, and so I get that, like, that is an interesting twist, but, like, again, how fucked up is that?
It's so fucked up.
To do that to, again, your quote-unquote friends.
Well, also,
without their consent. They consented to go into this one cave system.
Yeah, they filed a flight plan, because Becca at least cares about the safety
That's
rules.
the safety first, yes.
And Becca is in there with her little sister Sam, who like she's clearly very protective of. And Sam's like, well, I have gone caving like once before.
Yeah.
But like she's like a novice kind of at this. Like you're sending somebody who doesn't have a bunch of caving experience into this.
Into a situation where
anything could happen.
It's not charted. Like there could be anything down there.
Yeah.
So, and then like, again, it's just like the lack of consent is what really, really gets me.
And I think it's Becca that does say, like, this isn't, an adventure or whatever. This is a fucking ego trip.
Yeah, which it super is.
For real.
Becca's got it. Yeah. She's right on top of it.
And the thing about her obsession with, like, wanting to, like, claim this place and name it, it's just, like, in general, like, naming nature that's been, like, here way longer than you've ever been fucking alive and will long outlast you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like part of her like trauma response to dealing with death, where she feels like she needs to leave some sort of legacy or something.
Yeah, or like in some way feel like she has conquered.
Yeah, because I mean, in all fairness, in that car accident, her loved one also died because that was Sarah's husband.
This is the other thing. It's like Juno really needs some lessons on consent, right?
Yes.
Because like she's also having an affair with Sarah's husband, and like it is an affair. Like this is not ethical non-monogamy.
Yeah,
this is non-ethical
Sarah
non-monogamy.
does not know about it.
And if she did, she would not
like
be
it.
okay with it, right? So like, gosh, Juno just really, again, she's not a good friend. Sorry,
No.
Juno. But you...
Well, I'm not... Yes.
Are you ready to be her defense lawyer or not
I
yet?
will say, there's something that I find interesting about Juno.
Okay.
I am kind of ready to be her.
All right.
Okay, because I'm not going to say Juno did nothing wrong, because...
She definitely did some stuff
She
wrong.
did two very big things wrong.
Yeah.
Having sleeping with her friend's husband. That is not friendship.
Uncool.
You're not her friend.
Uncool. Yeah.
And then, forcing them into this cave that they did not expect.
Yeah.
But I also do think that she's one of those people who has that bravado in the way that is just a mask for, like, deep insecurities.
Yeah.
Like, I think she's a very insecure person.
Yeah.
I do think she's one of the richer characters. Actually, I think she is the richest character in this movie.
Definitely.
I think she has... I like the, like, repeated motif of her running from, like, emotions. Like, we see her when Sarah is crying because she's just found out that her whole family is dead in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
We see Beth comforting her.
Yeah.
And Juno is, like, there for a moment and then walks away.
Yeah.
And we find out that she not just walked away, but she, like, fully left the country.
Yeah.
She left the country to get away from it. And then, like, she kind of does the same thing to Beth when Beth is, like, lying there dying, bleeding out because Juno accidentally killed her. Yeah. And Beth's like, stay with me. Don't let me die alone or whatever. And Juno's just like, I'm going to just inch away.
Yeah.
And she does that again to Becca, too. And Becca's getting her guts torn out.
Yeah.
And dying. Juno's like, I'm just going to jump into this water down below into the darkness instead of dealing with this.
Yes.
Like, she's somebody who runs away, which is not great.
No. And this is honestly really, I think, one of my biggest critiques of this film, because like a huge part of why it is like so, widely enjoyed is because like, oh, it's like an all-female cast, right? But like, this is a movie created by men. The director's a man, the producers are men, the editor's a man.
And not only that, but it originally had a mix of male and female characters, and then they only made it all women because they're like, that's unusual.
That sounds fun. Yeah. And so it's like, is this really like an all-female cast, or are these just characters
written by men
that were written by men, and they're just like, we'll just make them all ladies?
Yeah.
Because like, there's some things in here that I'm like, if this was a group of all women that were supposed to be like friends and like a pair of sisters and like friends and people who have known each other and like been doing this kind of activity with each other for what seems like a very long time, then like, they would not do the things that they're doing.
They don't act like a team.
They don't act like a team.
But sometimes friends don't act like teams, so I don't know if I necessarily have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
But I can sort of see that some of these characters were originally probably men.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, let me get into my brief defense of Juno.
Please do, yeah.
Because I do think, other than those things that she does that are totally awful in the beginning, I think she is... One thing I want to give her credit for, something that I think makes her a more rounded character and why she's more interesting than a lot of the other characters.
Yep.
Oh, also, can we briefly talk about how she is the only woman of color in this cast?
Yeah.
The only person of color in this class?
Yeah.
And then, like, the only character who's, like, really villainized. It's like,
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah. I don't really have anything to say about that other than to put a little noted in it.
Noted, yeah. Is she also the only American?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's the only American because we've got like kind of like vaguely British accents, and then we've got like a very staunchly Irish accent in Holly.
And the sisters are like kind of, the actors at least are like from the Netherlands and Sweden.
Oh, okay.
So they're supposed to have kind of that accent.
Okay, yeah.
I had a hard time placing it when we were watching, but yeah. So yeah, Juno is sort of somebody who stands out, I think, on purpose.
Probably, yeah.
Because she's the one who's villainized, but then it's like when that's your way of making her stand out, it's sort of interesting.
Yeah, she's the American and she's the woman of color. Yeah.
But what I was going to say about Juno is that I do think she has some of the good qualities of the athlete archetype, where she really does not want to leave a man behind for a lot of it. Like when Holly is the first one who gets killed, she like, it's kind of clear that Holly's dead and she is still trying to like recover her body for a little while. And that's why she fights the, one. And it isn't really until like the trauma and shock of accidentally killing Beth herself sets in that she seems to like freeze up.
Yeah.
And then like she has the moment where she finds the marker of the previous cavers. Yeah. She could have fucking saved herself at that moment. She could have left everybody behind because she finds that first. And then she goes back into the cave and finds everybody else. And even when she finds Becca and Sam, she still is like, Sarah's still in this cave somewhere.
Still in the cave, yeah.
Like, I don't think she's as bad of a person.
There's no fucking way she would let Sarah die.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And her live, there's no way.
No, because of the guilt, baby.
The guilt.
And also because they're in, I don't know, because of their weird homosexual triangle where maybe she was only sleeping with her husband because she was really in love with Sarah. I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. And also, in Juno's defense, if I was Juno, I would also think Beth died. Like, when I was walking away from Beth, I'd be like, Beth is dead.
Beth is dead.
Like, she's not lying to Sarah when she's like, Beth didn't make it.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, Beth fucking didn't make it. She got a fucking ice pick through the neck.
Because Beth did not make it. She's not lying.
Yeah. That's true. I don't know. I think once the chips are down, I can see why Juno is a good person to have in these situations. Yeah. I do think she kind of ends up stepping up. More like the sisters are only caring about themselves and like saving themselves. Yeah. Beth is like, Juno's the one who fucking killed me. Fuck her shit up. Yeah. Which is understandable. Like, I understand.
But yeah, like Juno is the one who's like, when they do not see which way they should go. Yeah. She's got the lighter eye
and like she's leading the way. Like, I think she exhibits a lot of the best of athlete behavior. Yeah. And like really it does become a team player when it's time to become a team player. So, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, she did some fucked up shit. Yeah. I don't know that she necessarily deserved getting murdered for it. But that's true of a lot of the people in this movie. There's a lot of people who definitely did not deserve getting murdered more so than Juno.
Yeah.
I mean, should we talk about...
Also, do you think it's like, it means anything that like her name is Juno?
I know. The goddess of marriage.
Oh, is that what Juno is?
Isn't she? Isn't that the Roman name for Hera?
It's Hera. Yeah. I always knew her as Hera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jupiter and Juno. Yeah.
Yeah. So, she's the goddess of marriage.
And I also think about like fucking Zeus, man.
Who's a fucking cheater. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. I almost wonder if.
Well, I mean, Juno was also known for being really. I mean, Juno would have been a better name for Sarah. Because Sarah ends up having that moment of vengeance against Juno.
And she's the one whose husband's cheating on her.
Yeah. So it would have been a better name for her.
Yeah.
But, that's just more of the mirroring between Juno and Sarah that we'll get into in our literary corner.
And then, of course, honestly, every time I see a character named Juno, I just think about the movie Juno. And then I'm like, God, I love that.
Beside the point.
Yeah, that's beside the point.
Should we talk about the other people in this cave who did not deserve to die and be in this weird situation?
Beth, Sam, and Becca. Yeah. I think also it's not helpful that there is a Becca and a Beth.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Sometimes they call her Rebecca. Does that help?
No. And then there's a Sam and a Sarah.
Yeah. Another reason why Juno stands out is just that, like, her name is singular.
That's true.
Not just as, like, the only J name, but, like, as a name that's, like, not a common name.
Right, yeah. Like Sam, Holly, Beth, Sarah, Rebecca.
They're all just, like, girl names. And then it's Juno. She's such a standout. Let's talk about Beth briefly, because I really don't have much to say about Beth.
Literally, my first note is she's kind of no one.
She is an English teacher. Thank you.
She's an English teacher.
Not a Tomb Raider.
Sarah's best friend. And
she somehow survives for a while with an ice axe through her neck.
Yeah. For like a while.
I don't understand how.
Yeah. Not only does she survive with that fatal neck wound, she is capable of speaking.
I know. And
with that fatal neck wound.
I gotta give flowers to Beth for using her dying breaths to be like, Sarah, don't trust Juno. She's a bitch.
Yeah, right.
Like, petty, vindictive behavior, and I support you for that.
Also, Beth, why didn't you say this literally 1 year ago?
Sorry, I got so excited by what you said. I accidentally choked on my own spit.
Yes.
No, literally, what? Beth knew.
Yeah.
We see in the first shot that Beth is aware that there's something going on between Juno and Sarah's husband.
That's not a friend, man.
Like, Beth, say something. How do you not say something? How do you not, like, approach the husband maybe and are like, hey, stop this fucking bullshit.
I think
approach Juno.
Honestly, exactly what I would do. Like, if one of my friends was in a relationship and there was some non-ethical non-monogamy happening, I would go up to that partner and be like, you need to knock this shit off yesterday.
My only concern about that is that that's how you get murdered.
Right. But I don't think that's this kind of movie.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean in real life. Yeah. But yeah, I don't understand. Beth is like Sarah's best friend, and like she knows what Juno was up to, and she clearly doesn't like Juno.
Yeah.
So she's like, hey, Sarah, we don't have to do this caving trip.
No.
We don't have to do this. Yeah. And Sarah's like, you tell Juno that, and Beth like just sort of goes quiet about it. And I'm like, Beth, now would be a great time to be like, actually, let's talk about Juno.
She
abandoned you after your family died. Yeah. Before your family died, she was sleeping with your husband. She's still wearing his necklace that she gave.
Does she know about the necklace though? Or does she not know about it until she grabs it?
I don't know. Does she do that on purpose?
Again though, the audacity
to wear that fucking
necklace.
That clearly says love
each day.
Yeah.
Very large. A pretty sizable statement piece of jewelry.
And it's such a fucking stupid phrase that only that dude said it. It's not like it's just a coincidence.
The audacity.
Fucking Juno.
Yeah. So, right.
And so, yeah. So Beth is there, also not a great friend, but the best friend we got in this film.
She helps Sarah out through that moment of claustrophobia, which I think, again, I'm actually not a claustrophobic person. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's kind of something calming about.
I like to be in a close space. Yeah, I like a small space.
I think maybe that's the cat in me because cats like a nice enclosed space because it's safe.
Yeah, I feel very safe in a small space.
So I understand people experience claustrophobia. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it, and I can understand how a movie like this might play on those fears. But that really is the most claustrophobic this movie gets.
It doesn't get that claustrophobic. There's a lot of wide open caverns for the most of it,
which are dark and hard to navigate. And I understand that, but as far as the claustrophobia theme, it's really just one scene.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love the part where they have to go through there's kind of a puddle at the bottom of it.
Yeah, they have to go under the water. Yeah,
they don't even have to go under the water. There's just a puddle that they have to kind of splash in. It's not that bad. And I guess Juno plunges into some water for a second, but it's yeah.
Oh, and Sarah jumps into that pool of blood.
Which what?
Why is it there?
We'll get to the pool of blood when we talk about the monsters of this movie.
Also, Beth does one other thing.
Oh, yeah?
She makes the funny joke about how do you make a lemon have an orgasm, right?
Yeah. Which is a better way to get Sarah to move. And comfort her.
Yeah, than to be
to be remember how your husband and child died? Think about that while you're almost dead.
She is the one who figures out the cave paintings.
She is.
That's one thing she contributes.
Use that teaching license. Yeah. Analyze that text. Who needs a Tomb Raider?
But then she is the one who, and it is obviously an accident. Are they fighting off crawlers?
Yes.
And then
Juno,
the chaos.
Holly dies.
Holly dies first.
Juno is getting attacked. She finally kills the crawler. She hears something behind her, turns around, swings because she was attacking something, and she thought it was just her and crawlers.
Yeah,
and then gets Beth. I don't blame Juno for that. And then when Beth talks about it, she's like, "Juno did this to me," which is true, but also,
and also, isn't this kind of I don't know. To me, this is sort of perpetuating myths and misconceptions about women's relationships.
Yeah.
Women actually don't get along.
Yeah.
that thing about
they're catty.
They're catty. Yeah.
They're always fighting over a man.
Yeah. Or
they get jealous when they have other friends.
Some kind of disagreement. Don't actually like each other, but insist on spending time together anyway. And it's just no.
It's that.
Why are we doing that?
That stupid. John Mulaney joke about how women can never be on a heist team together.
Oh yeah, they could never do Ocean's 11 with women. Like, well, John Mulaney,
they fucking did that.
They did that. It's called Ocean's 8, and it's actually really good.
And people didn't like it, but that's because they're sexist.
It's true. It's same with the all female Ghostbusters,
which was a fucking great.
It was
movie.
good. Yeah.
Y'all just suck.
Yeah, basically. So,
but yeah, I do feel like in a similar situation, I might be like, wow, Juno accidentally killed me, and I'm really upset about that because I'm dying or whatever. I don't know that I would use that moment to be like, Sarah, don't trust Juno. Because I'm like, Sarah needs Juno to get out of this fucking cave.
It's true.
You want to build solidarity between women.
Yeah. Women helping women.
And the only time we see that is with Becca and Sam. Because they're sisters, and I guess family ties are the only thing that really matter.
Yeah.
Friendship, nah. Family ties, yes.
So that's actually really interesting because, again, we see that, like, after they spend the night in their cabin in the woods, and then Juno goes on her run
for whatever
for
reason.
no reason.
Because she's
the only thing I could think of is like an homage to Silence of the Lambs. Where Clarice, there's a scene where Clarice Starling is like going on a run before through the woods before she gets her assignment, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why though? Like,
just to show she's sportsy.
She's so sportsy. I'm like, you're literally about to like go spend all day in a cave.
She's got to wake her body up.
I guess. Do some yoga. Whatever.
Well, she does some of that too.
Yeah. A one-sided yoga, yes.
Yeah.
But then it's interesting because then they're like in. I don't fully understand what the cabin situation is. I don't
either.
But like Sam and Holly
are sharing a cabin
or like a room in the cabin
because they're probably lesbianing.
Because like why wouldn't
Sam and Becca be together?
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
It makes no sense
because they're obviously very close as sisters.
Yes,
we see them first,
but then
like,
also
playing a game together because they just like each other.
Right, and they also like. What did they establish? Oh, Sam's a nurse, right?
Sam's going to be a doctor.
Oh, she's going to be a doctor.
Whoa, sexist America.
That was sexist, yes. Why did I think she was a nurse?
She's not quite a doctor yet.
She's not a doctor yet. She's a medical professional.
I feel really bad for Becca and Sam because I think if it wasn't for the crawlers, they would have been out of this cave no problem. Like, they're so set up with the skills to get out of this cave. And they aren't a part of the drama between Sarah and Juno and Eve and Beth. Like, they're so outside of all of it.
Yeah.
These two girls, they've got the medical know-how, and Becca's, like, an amazing climber.
Yes.
And, like, totally, does that whole thing across the ceiling or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, she's so, like, Sam could have saved everybody with her doctor skills, and Becca could have gotten them out.
And they could have, like, I mean, they do, like, they lose one of the rope bags, right? And, like, they do, like, meet setbacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, without the crawlers, they probably would have made it out.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Except for there's a thing that they do that marks them for death. In horror movies. Which is that they hear, when it's just the sisters together, they hear Juno yelling, and Becca says something like, with all that noise she's making, she's going to have them all over her. All those crawlers are going to come right to her with her yelling. And Sam says, as long as it isn't me.
Oh.
And I'm like, yes, I support you saying that, but also that's the sort of thing you say that will get you killed in a horror movie. You don't right. Like, they also want to leave Sarah for dead, and Juno's like, no, we have to go back for Sarah.
Yeah.
But like, they only kind of care about their own survival and getting each other out, which I think is why they have to die, because you can't let a woman be selfish and only care about her own survival in a horror movie.
Right.
That's how women die.
Yeah. Although I actually did like Becca once I could finally figure out how to differentiate her from Beth, because she's the one who like makes the first mention of like the cave not matching the description from the book, and she's like, we are not in that cave, are we?
Yeah.
And she's also the one who like is the first one to actually try to hold Juno accountable.
Yeah, she is. She's the one who calls her out for like the ego trip and
putting them into this uncharted cave system without telling them that that's what she was gonna do. Yeah,
I know. I get so sad that like they did nothing wrong other than try to save themselves. There's even the moment where, first off, Becca does the badass athlete thing of like, she's the first one who like climbs across the fucking ceiling.
That's
with that
true.
First row.
And she notices that like thing from previous ones and doesn't say anything again.
Well, so that wasn't great, Becca. Yeah. But like, she's a badass. And then later, little Sam tries to do sort of like the same thing, and it doesn't go as well for her because she's not a badass like in the same way that her sister is. Also, she ends up dying. But like, they are doing their fucking best.
Sam, to me, in my opinion, gets the coolest death.
Oh, she gets a cool fucking death.
Yeah, because she gets her throat like kind of ripped out by a crawler, and then she's already like hooked up to the ceiling of the cave and is like hanging.
She's just hanging there dead.
And like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So Sam gets coolest death.
Not only that, but she does stab the crawler that like kills her. It doesn't totally kill him, but like she gets her licks in.
She gets one in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
but of course, they have to die because we need it to be left down to just Juno and Sarah, because this is what the movie is really about, is Juno and Sarah.
Yeah, for sure. Technically, it is Holly who dies first.
Yes.
And then Beth.
Yeah.
Although it really takes her quite a while.
Somehow.
And then it's Sam.
And then we don't fully see Becca die, but she's getting her whole stomach torn out. So like,
we kind of know what's going on.
But I mean, if Becca can survive an ice axe, then... But yeah, of course, Becca dies immediately after her little sister because they can't live without each other because that's their only tie.
And then, and also Becca's the last one. It's like, okay, now Becca, you need to die because it has to be Juno and Sarah. So like, it's your turn
and
now.
Honestly, Becca, you're too capable.
Yeah.
Because like I said, if the creatures did not exist in this film, Becca and Sam would have had them fine. They would have taken care of Holly's injuries.
Yep.
They would have had them out of this fucking cave. They would have kept Juno in fucking line.
Yep.
Like, they would have fucking had this. But then these creatures exist in this movie for some reason.
Yeah. They're called crawlers, which, whatever, is fine. What do these creatures add to this film?
Because we spent so long without them. We start off
literally half the film.
We started with that bloody car crash, which is great. And then, like, the weird running through the dark hallways thing where we haven't even technically gotten to the horror yet.
In the hospital, yeah.
And then so long in these caves with these women in, like, actual real danger and, like, real moments of horror, what they're going through.
Yeah.
And then finally also crawlers show up. It's like weird pacing.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like it's a lot. Mm-hmm. It's like, does this movie need all of these things?
Because if it had just been these women trying to survive in the cave while dealing with their, like, devolving friendship, I think that could have been a cool movie on its own.
That would have been a really cool movie. Or like a super cool, chill, no interpersonal drama at all group of friends.
Yeah.
In like good faith, all going into this cave and then meeting like crawlers, like these weird proto-human things.
Yeah, that could have been cool too.
Yeah,
but doing it both is kind of like,
feels like a hat on a hat.
It does feel like a hat on the hat.
Yeah.
And then they do like double foreshadowing. Okay, so we have the thing that we talked about with not with them having to kill an animal, but they come upon a dead animal as like foreshadowing.
Oh,
there's that dead stag,
elk or deer or something.
Yeah. They didn't have to mercy kill it, but still it's there. And I'm kind of like, why that? How is that foreshadowing anything that they're going to get into? But I guess it's because Juno later says, oh, the crawlers go up above and get their kills and bring them back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nobody fucking knows about these crawlers, and they're like routinely going up to get.
Yeah.
Like what?
Are they like just playing off of the rural Appalachia of it all? Because that's where they are.
Yeah.
That like, oh, it's so rural.
That people just like don't even know that this cave exists and that these crawlers
things have been there for as long as humans?
Yeah, as long as whenever the first humans, like Neanderthal or something. Like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
It's unclear.
Yeah.
I do like, actually, though, speaking of foreshadowing, the foreshadowing where they see the bloody fingerprints kind of like in the opening to the cave.
Well, only one of them sees it.
Yeah, and then doesn't say anything.
Like, was it Holly? I can't remember.
I don't fucking... Yeah, I think it might have actually been Sarah.
Okay, yeah. And
but, yeah.
So the amount of people seeing shit and
not communicating
with
people who are their friends.
Yes.
I would have been like, you and me in a fucking cave together would have been like, hey, whoa, there are bloody fingerprints here.
These look like bloody fingerprints.
Is this not a safe cave? I mean, maybe somebody just got hurt. It happens and got some blood on, but like, is that weird?
Is that weird? And then like, if someone was like going across the chasm, right? Yeah. And then found like something to hook their rope to that was already there. It looked like older equipment.
Yes.
Then like, wouldn't you be like, hey, there's already something here. It looks really old. Like,
and not only that, but she clicks into it. Okay, I guess we're just going to take a brief aside to talk about how lack of communication is the real monster of this film.
It really is.
She clicks into it, and I kind of understand that when she's like, well, we're short on supplies, and I just need to get me across, and then everybody else is going to come across on, like, the safer rope, and it'll be okay. I'm only putting myself at risk. But then Juno starts to go across, and she isn't like, oh, by the way, Juno, I clipped this into something that might not be safe because it's an old, rusty piece of old equipment.
Yeah. And so, then like, they do, and then they find, like, old equipment, and they're like, this is, like, really old.
Yeah.
No one uses this stuff anymore.
Well, I mean, at that point, they're already in it, so I don't know. But yeah, because she clipped into that, Juno fucking falls, and then the rope fucking tears up Becca's hand.
Yeah.
And it's like, Becca, maybe if you had mentioned that you had done that, Juno wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And it's just like... I mean, yeah, it's just like Beth doesn't talk to Sarah about the cheating husband. Juno, of course, doesn't ever tell Sarah.
Yeah.
Like, I do like that our first intro to Sam and Becca is they're playing like a card game or something and accusing each other of being cheaters. It's like a cute little like, oh, there's cheating.
Oh.
But it is like, yeah. So many times when it's like, okay, why are we not using the buddy system? Why is Sarah just wandering off? Why is nobody talking to Sarah about what she's been through and if she should be in this cave?
Yeah.
I thought at least they were friends, not that we ever learn why they hang out with each other.
That's true.
I'm like, did they go to college together? Like, why is one British? No, like 3 are British and one's American.
Yeah.
And like 2 are like from the Netherlands or something. Like, what is that? Sarah, why are you not telling your friends that you're hallucinating your dead daughter's laugh every other second?
Yeah. This is also, I think, this is like another nail in the coffin for me of like these women acting like men. Like these female characters being written by men and like being like a female character in name only, really. And like,
because as we all know, women talk a lot,
and the actor
and they would be talking to each
that
other
portrays them. So like they are not communicating with each other. And there's this other very like, and that's the other thing is like, you know, with like all of the outdoorsy sportsy stuff they do is like coded as masculine, right? Like the rafting, the caving, all that kind of stuff. But like they are also like, they do really all seem to be like trying to outperform each other and like impress each other, like with Juno's like weird literal flex of like her like I can put my leg up to my head. I'm like, okay. And like
unless she's trying to sleep with those women, what is she doing?
And Holly's like, I'll go, and like runs into us like, what are you trying to prove? Like there's this weird,
and even when Juno climbs across the ceiling, supposedly because they need all the gear that they have. She doesn't like discuss it first, or like she's just like, watch me be a badass.
I'll do
Becca
it.
was just a badass. It's my turn to be a badass.
And it's like, okay,
just talk to each other like normal people.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Tell people that you just saw fucking bloody fingerprints on this fucking cave wall because there might be something sinister happening here. Tell them that you're not in the fucking boring caverns. Like, talk to each other about anything. And like, that could have been the villain of this movie. Honestly, would have just been them not communicating with each other.
That would be an interesting way to,
We're all like, because so many of their problems do come from the fact that they just don't fucking talk to each other.
Yeah.
And that's like without the crawlers being involved. But then the crawlers are there also.
Yeah.
And we only get like, my note, over halfway through this film, and we've only gotten like 2 glimpses of the cave dwellers.
Yeah.
And then literally right after I wrote that note, the cave dwellers showed up and attacked them.
That's when the big jump scare goes.
That I missed because I was writing a note.
Because who has the camera? They're using the camera.
Which is kind of a cool device, using the infrared thing to see what's going on. I think Sarah maybe thinks to use the
bones.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the other thing. Because like those bones don't make any sense. Because they're like bleached white. And I'm like, so these bones came from animals that were like killed and dragged down into the caves. And like, okay, I would believe that they were picked clean. Okay, I understand that. But like, it's a dank cave. They're not going to be like sun bleached bones. Like they're very white. They're very dry looking.
They are like, very dry looking. And it seems like that's a damn cave with a literal pool of blood, which also doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
I don't know much about bones. So I feel like I don't know what to say about these bones. I do think them with a lot more viscera on them and like stuff would have been kind of cool though.
Yeah, and I think also, to me at least, like that helps support the theory that like the crawlers are a hallucination.
Because it's
like,
just
those
weird.
Bones don't make sense.
Why would they have a literal pool of blood?
Sense.
Like, why would there be like it's a deep pool of blood?
Yeah.
She like stands up in it.
Yeah.
Like, why is there a pool of blood? Does it make sense also that these things wouldn't have ever developed speech if they're like proto-humans? I feel like cavemen were starting to develop speech. I don't know enough about prehistory fucking humans, but
also they don't have human teeth. They've got like those sharp teeth. And like teeth are a pretty big aspect of us being able to talk. So I don't know.
I don't know. They just look like Nosferatu, which is like a weird, I guess.
Yeah, they've got the ears for sure.
And it like kind of makes sense that they have like bat-like qualities that they're adapting.
Yeah, their noses are kind of,
and that works with the one jump scare that did get me when all the bats jump out when they're first at the cave opening.
Yes.
And it's like, oh yeah, because they're going to get attacked by like these bat people.
Bat-like things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they can't see, but they can hear really well.
Yeah, they can't see, which Sam,
Okay.
our scholar, is like the first one to be like, oh, they can't see us.
Yeah.
I also like the moment when they have one that's dead. And Becca's like, we got to keep going. And Juno's like, no, Sam, use your doctor skills. Tell us what we're fighting. Like, figure this shit out. Like, Juno understands the assignment. I wish that had actually come to something.
Yeah.
Because all we learn is like, oh, yeah, they're sort of human-esque, but not.
And they can't.
And that's all that came from it.
But they can hear and smell.
Yeah, they like kind of echolocate or something, which is why they have those weird clicky noises.
Yeah.
I wish that moment had come to something better because I think that was a cool, like, the women coming together and like trying to fight this and using,
solve a problem.
That could have been a cool moment.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, when don't get me wrong, I'm like pro monster movie.
Yeah.
I like a monster.
Yeah.
I like a creature feature. But like we already have this like human drama that like adding,
and it's already human versus nature of them being stuck in this cave and trying to survive.
Yeah. And then so adding this other level of threat is like, like the rest of it is very much like a little more subtle.
Yeah.
And then the crawlers show up and it becomes very overt.
Well, to be fair, the movie does open up with a very overt car crash.
I know, and I do love that
for
car
so
crash.
long, and then we don't see the crawlers forever, and we don't even really get a lot of foreshadowing of them because the stag, sure, or like the bloody hand, but like. I don't know. Like, the pacing of it felt off to me, that it made the crawlers seem really weird. And by the time they showed up, I was like, I don't need them here. I was liking what this movie was doing without them.
Right. Yeah, because, like, they could get hurt. They could get disoriented. You know.
The hallucinating, the infighting.
Yeah.
If it had come out that, Sarah finds out that Juno was sleeping with her husband.
Yeah.
She sees the next. Like, there are other things. Becca and Sam could go off on their own because they don't want to deal with their drama. Holly could keep being stupid and running ahead and keep getting injured. There are things that could happen. But instead we have these things that have developed over thousands of years to be expert cave crawlers.
That no human being knows exists.
Even though they come up above ground and hunt a lot.
Often, it seems. Yes. Yeah, I think that like...
enough to have just so many bones.
So many bones. And it just does feel like, I don't know, this movie needs to pick a lane.
Yeah.
Like, are humans the real villains or not?
Yeah.
And it's like, I just think this would have been a more interesting movie if it were a little more like on the human side of things, We
were talking about how I do think this movie, what did you say, this movie walked so other movies could run or whatever?
Right, yeah.
I do think it was an inspiration for a lot of other movies, and one of the ones I kept thinking of was Fall, which is just, movie. Two women who climb up a really tall thing together and then get stuck up there.
Yeah.
So literally the same thing, especially since one of the women, it turns out, was like kind of in love with the other chick's dead boyfriend.
Yeah.
So it's like a very similar thing.
Yeah.
But it just keeps to that. And like the moments of unreality pay off.
They do way better.
And there's no monsters because there's just how do you survive?
Man.
Yeah, it's just like it kind of works better.
Yeah. No, really, the humans are the monsters in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also just the hubris of climbing up something like that or climbing down into this cave is like the monster. The lack of communication.
Yeah.
The interpersonal drama. Like, there's enough there.
Yeah, we don't...
You don't need to throw in these weird creatures.
Yeah, and so it is so interesting to me, like, to see how highly regarded this film is. Like, even still.
I know.
Like,
I was like, am I missing something?
This movie's almost 20 years old. Can you imagine? Can you believe?
Can you believe?
So, like, even now, like, even more recent stuff I was looking at, they're like, this movie's great. Like, oh, it's, like, so good at encapsulating. Like, I think also because, this movie comes out in 2005. And honestly, I feel like a lot of early aughts horror is what people, I think, refer to as torture porn. Like, that's when we get Hostel. That's when we get the Saw franchise.
Okay.
And, like, I almost kind of wonder if the love of The Descent, because it is, like, kind of gory.
Yeah.
Like, is just a little bit more of, like, a pushback on, like, what else was happening horror-wise in the early aughts. And I'm like... Oh, and also I saw something, I didn't write down the article I saw it on, sorry. But like something about kind of pushing back on like the meta self-referential horror of the 90s. I'm like, but I love meta self-referential horror from the 90s. So like, what are we really celebrating here?
Yeah.
Something I can't get behind. Like other people can get, like, that's fine. I don't care, but like, I can't get behind this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just so interesting. And then, yeah, it's like, oh, it's like an all-female cast and how cool. And like, it's pretty fucked up that like all it takes is a cast of all women
to like
to make a like actually kind of mediocre film.
Yeah. I do wonder if people would be talking about this movie if it had been like a mix of men and women.
Yeah, or all men.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Depending on how gay that movie would be if it was all men, right?
Right. Yeah. Should we talk about the gayness?
We definitely should. Also, I think it's like just to kick off the gayness is like, I mean, there's something quite like womb-like about a cave.
Oh,
right?
Well, yeah, straight up. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Quite yonic.
Quite yonic.
Is that the word?
It
yonic?
is the word.
Yeah.
Yes, yonic.
Quite yonic. So
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, it probably is my favorite thing about this movie is the I talked about how my favorite part of the movie is just right at the beginning when Sarah's talking to her little daughter about her upcoming birthday party. And she's like, you gonna invite any boys this time? Yes. And the daughter just sort of like giggles like, no. And I just spent the whole movie being like, yeah, this is why we don't invite boys. Fuck boys. Don't invite boys. Fucking the husband being cagey about his affair and then causing a fucking car crash.
Yeah.
So that the daughter also dies. Like, yeah, no, we should not have invited that boy.
Nope.
And then like Sam she has that watch that apparently is from her boyfriend or whatever that goes off at an inopportune time.
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't have invited that boy.
Yeah.
Let's not invite the boys.
Also, like, she again, Sam's like talking about her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do they even ask her? Like, how are things going? And she's like, okay, she's fine.
Yeah, she makes a point about how like they're on different like shifts, they're on different rotations because they're both doctors or whatever, so like they don't see each other much, and she just seems so indifferent to this guy.
And I'm like, I don't think you have a boyfriend, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that this man exists.
Yes,
and that she calls him her boyfriend.
Yeah,
I don't believe that they have a meaningful relationship.
No,
and I do strongly believe that her and Holly were flirting up a storm.
Like, Holly, again, like nothing is ever explicitly stated, but there is like a lot of subtext. And like Holly is like very dyke coded.
She's so, I mean, yeah, the closest we get to explicit is Sarah asks like right after that Sam conversation. She's like, what about you, Holly? Do you got a man?
Yeah.
And Holly says, I'm a sports fuck like Juno. Rebecca too, I think. And I'm like, is she saying she's a lesbian and so is Juno and she thinks Rebecca's a lesbian?
A sports
What's a sports fuck? She doesn't care about men. She only cares about sports. Like, I've never heard that phrase. I don't think it's a real phrase.
That's not a thing. Maybe it's a thing in Ireland.
I don't. I think she was just saying it as a joke to be like, all she cares about is sports. She's just a freak about sports.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have time for a man, or like men don't care about her, or something like that.
Or like,
but it's very lesbian coded.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
It's, I mean, especially with the reputation of lesbians being all on softball teams or whatever.
Right. Of the again,
the sporty lesbians.
of these like this physical activity that they seem so engaged in is like always coded as masculine to begin with, and then like of course women taking part in this masculine activity like then calls into question their sexuality.
Right. So obviously they're all lesbians, and like that tracks with Holly, and I sort of understand why she calls out Juno, because Holly and Juno kind of have a questionable relationship with her being proteges and with her doing the weird stretch right in front of Holly and stuff. But then she for some reason calls out Rebecca too, the older sister who is a good athlete. But I'm like, she's not lesbian. I mean, she's not lesbian coded. She's just, there's no mention.
Yeah.
And it's like, you were flirting with, you do remember you were flirting with the younger sister, right?
With Sam, yeah.
Who's clearly very indifferent to her boyfriend. Like, you remember that? I don't know. Maybe they're just all lesbians.
Right.
Yeah, there's parts where like...
But then why would Juno be having an affair with a man?
Well, because she's a depraved bisexual, obviously.
Yes,
obviously.
She's a psycho-bisexual, and... again, maybe actually in love with Sarah, but like could not have
but there's the thing,
that kind of relationship with Sarah.
She talks about, okay, so like Sarah kind of like, I guess, sort of asked Juno to plan this trip is sort of like a thing, but Juno plans the trip for Sarah.
Yeah.
Juno makes it way more risky than it needs to be.
And
yeah. Sarah asks her, she has this moment where Sarah and Juno actually talk to each other. There are very few moments where they actually talk to each other. But one of them, Sarah asks her, was this about me or was this about you?
Yeah.
And Juno says, it was about us.
Yes.
It was about getting back to what we used to be. Oh. And I'm like, what did you used to be?
What did you used to be? Yeah.
Were you like gays till graduation? What was your? What did you used to be?
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Huh.
Gugs and lugs. Gays till graduation and lesbian till graduation.
Oh, so like they're gay in college,
yeah,
and then after they graduate from college, they're like, all right, now I have to go find
an actual
someone
man
to marry.
Yeah, it's a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing. I think it's an
I
old
hope
fashioned.
not. I hope we're done with that.
I'm not sure if it was ever an actual thing that people did, but it was a thing people joked about.
Sure.
But so they have their questionable relationship.
Oh.
And then there's the part of, we already said Sam and Holly, Juno stretching her leg. And not only does Juno do that to them, but Sam and Holly both clearly check Juno out.
Yeah.
It's like so clear that they're checking her out.
Yeah.
And then they like laugh about it.
And like looking at her body. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I know that they're cavers or whatever, but the close-ups on Juno's carabiner are lesbian behavior.
I love that you call it a carabiner. I love it. I just call it a carabiner.
Oh, is it a carabiner?
That's what I've always called it.
I only ever see it in writing.
I know, because you learn from reading.
I learn from reading.
Yeah.
And I only know it from lesbian jokes. Because I don't go out caving.
Is that a thing? Carabiner is a lesbian joke?
Yes. Lesbians always have their keys on their carabiners.
Oh.
It's totally the joke. So then we keep getting... So every time I saw Juno's little carabiner, which is what I'm pronouncing it as now because I've learned from you.
I mean, I don't know.
Every time I saw it, though, because there were like explicit close-ups on it in a way that like seemed very sexy from a lesbian gaze perspective.
Right. Well, and also...
I was just like, okay, lesbian. Okay, dyke.
It is worth noting that Juno is quite scantily clad.
Yes.
She's wearing very short shorts. I think she's wearing a tank top.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, caves are cold.
And also just like rough and stuff. Like,
yeah, like you would want
protection.
like protection. Yeah, and Juno is like very, she kind of...
And yet it is interesting because they don't really get super sexualized in terms of movies, especially horror movies, sexualizing women.
Right.
I think the only time, the sexiest shot, literally to me, was when she puts her bloody axe sort of like on her hip. And you see the carabiner, and it's like right there on her hip. I don't know. That shot was sexy from a lesbian perspective. Sexy shot. But like, there's no like overtly... I mean, I guess her stretching her leg was an overtly sexual moment. I don't know if that's just because there aren't men. I was a little bit uncomfortable the first time Juno is fighting right after Holly dies, and she's fighting the crawler, and they're like crawling around on the ground fighting each other, and he's like on top of her, and she's like struggling to get him off. That part made me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I wouldn't necessarily call it like her getting sexualized.
Yeah.
It's like a weirdly de-sexed movie.
But it is interesting because Juno is wearing like a full face of makeup.
Yes.
As well.
She's so made up.
Yeah, so she is kind of like... Yeah.
The other women don't seem as...
Interesting choices for Juno's character. Oh, I just remembered another thing that to me is like, this was obviously like, these female characters were written by men, is that like when they are having their fun night in the cabin in the woods before they go on their trip, they're all drinking beer. And I'm like...
Women can like beer.
Women can like beer, but they're drinking a lot of beers of the same kind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these women would have brought wine.
They would have brought some ciders.
They would have brought something. Or like just, live it up and like bring some Irish whiskey or something.
Yeah.
Like they're drinking beer. Like, I don't know. Yes, women can like beer. I know. We don't
want to get like gender essential. And it's like a lot of...
I know a lot of women who like beer, but it's just like... But it's not even like a fun craft beer. It just looks like it's supposed to be a generic like Budweiser or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not what they would be drinking.
Like, especially since they have a vibe of like all... Maybe I'm making this up, that they all went to college together, except for the fact that I have no other reason to believe that they would know each other since they're all from all over the place. Like, how did they meet? The only thing I can think of is that they went to college together.
Yeah.
Because it's not like they have things in common other than doing scary shit together.
Yeah.
Like, what is their... Like, they don't see each other very often. They have the vibe of college friends who like then get back together like once a year to do a trip, you know? And I'm just like... Sure. Yeah, I don't know. And that's just not the vibe of like women who were like, they went to college together and like, or I guess university, because probably they went in England.
Yeah.
And then like they get back together and they just drink like cheap beers. It's like weird. It is weird.
Yeah.
It feels very like, like frat boy or like something.
Yes.
It doesn't feel like these are like adult women.
No. And I honestly don't consider them to be incredibly fleshed out and three-dimensional either.
Yeah.
Like that one quote I said about how like, oh, these aren't cardboard cutouts of female characters. I'm like, no, but like they're not fully three-dimensional either. Like,
I think Juno kind of is, but even Sarah, who's like our main person, I'm like, what do we know about her other than her family died?
Other than like this trauma she's
like,
experienced.
I'm not even sure how she feels about like caving. Is this a thing that she likes to do?
Yeah.
It's unclear how much even experience she has with caving. Like, that's never even established.
Yeah. How, like, does she actually consider Juno to be like a friend and a confidant?
Yeah. Were they, I mean, they used to be something. We don't know what they used to be, but they used to be it.
Yeah.
Like, were they besties?
I don't know.
More so than her and Beth?
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like,
it leaves a bit to be desired.
yeah, like this quote again from Cinephilia and Beyond. It's like the central protagonists of Sarah and Juno. I think it's really interesting to call Juno a protagonist.
Well, as I'll get into, I think
Are
she's a foil.
developed with insight and care. I just don't agree.
I mean, I do kind of feel it with Juno. I think Juno was pretty well done.
Okay. Is this our segue to Literary Corner? Or is there anything else we want to say about the lesbian subtext?
No, I think we can just get into Sarah and I think this is a good segue.
Okay, just the boys are not invited to the party.
Yeah, the boys are not invited.
Yeah. Literary Corner.
So yeah, let's talk about how, because I think I can see why you would maybe call Juno a protagonist. Not you, but one.
No, I'm not. Yeah,
but one
would.
And
yes.
I think it's because, and like Juno being fleshed out, and I guess maybe seeing Sarah's fleshed out, because most of their development happens as like foils to each other.
Right.
They are not single characters. They are like a pair.
Yeah.
That has to exist together,
Yeah.
or else doesn't exist. Like, that is what the movie is.
Not unlike A Final Girl and a Psycho Killer.
Not unlike A Final Girl and a Psycho Killer.
Point. Because you had mentioned to me that because I was on vacation, I was out of the country, and you watched this movie all by your lonesome.
All by my lonesome.
So proud,
I was
by
like,
the way.
am I going to be scared? But I was okay, because I didn't think this movie was that scary.
It's not that scary. But
and then we watched it again together.
You were mentioning how you're like, oh, this will actually, because then we did rewatch it. Yeah, we watched it together. And you're like, no, this will be good to watch it again because, like, I noticed a lot of mirroring in the characters. And so this will be nice to, like, see them again. So
Yeah, to really get it. Because there is some that I didn't notice until I watched it again because I knew that was what I was going to do. But first, since this is Literary Corner, I have to define a word.
Of course.
Which is just what a foil is as like a
Sure,
character.
sure.
I'm sure you remember talking about it in high school lit.
Yeah.
It's a literary device used to highlight a certain character's traits by putting them up against a character with contrasting traits. It can add additional context to a character's actions and choices by showing a different path a character could have taken. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like an antagonist or somebody who's like against the protagonist,
Right.
though often they'll butt heads because they have certain differences or something. But they could even be like a friend or like a main character's sidekick or something. You know, you highlight what the main character is like because their sidekick is totally the opposite. Hamlet and Laertes would be a classic foil.
Naturally.
Hamlet even tells Laertes he'll be his foil. Like, he literally says the word. And it's like,
But
they're both young men who prefer their time away from the Danish court. Their setup is similar, you know, like, which is just to make their differences more apparent. And it's like they become foils because of how they respond to their fathers being murdered. And like Hamlet takes all that time planning and plotting and wondering about afterlives and souls. Meanwhile, Laertes like shows up and immediately is like, okay, which bitch do I gotta kill? Who murdered my dad? Let's fucking do it. And is like ready to get, like, doesn't think about it at all. No hesitation. So like that's our foils.
so when I think of the word foil, I think of fencing.
Yes. That's actually the context.
I was going to say, is that the content?
Because they get it, they fence.
Of Laertes
They-
actually
yeah.
saying, I'll be your foil.
Yeah.
What about Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr?
That's actually a great example because
Thank you.
they have
Thank
certain
you.
similarities,
Thank you.
but very key differences that highlight each other's like both good and bad traits.
Right.
You know, Aaron Burr's wait for it
Yeah.
versus a Hamilton's I'm, gonna take my shot.
Not throwing away my shot.
Not throw away my shot. Wow. Yeah. No, that's a great example of foils.
Thank you.
And yeah, all this is just to say that Sarah and Juno are just like really good foils. I actually do think that the movie did a really good job with it.
Okay.
Just in like, there are really obvious surface differences of like light hair versus dark hair. And
Right.
like the sort of more quiet one, Sarah doesn't actually talk that much versus Juno, who's like really brash and outspoken.
Yeah.
And like our wife character versus our homewrecker, you know, our Madonna horror setup,
For
you
sure.
know, but like there are enough similarities to make comparison worth it. Like we're not comparing apples and oranges. We're comparing like a red apple to a green apple or whatever, you know, otherwise why would we be comparing?
A gala to a red delicious.
Yeah. So it's like they're both young, fit women.
Yeah.
They're both thrill seekers
who are apparently under 25.
Yes. Yes. They love to be in like dangerous situations. Like it makes them feel alive and in their element. Like they both have the same taste in men apparently.
Yeah.
And one of those things I noticed on the rewatch is that we get that visual right in the beginning where we have Beth and Sarah in their little blue whitewater rafting outfits. They have their little blue jackets on.
Yeah.
And Juno's the only one in red.
Yeah.
So she like stands out immediately. And it's clear right from the beginning that Sarah is the mother and the wife.
Yeah.
While Juno is immediately hinted at as like having this illicit affair.
Yeah.
You know, Sarah seems really like happy when she comes out and is like, yay, we just river raft. Whereas like Juno like emerges really kind of like grumpy and shivering from the water.
Yeah. I bet it was cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get Sarah, who's like fully consumed by her grief, who like really seems to feel things. Yeah. And Juno, who I talked about, tends to like run away from the emotion.
Away.
Yeah. Yeah. She like doesn't like to let those emotions show. Yeah. And like, I find it interesting and also makes sense that there's like not actually a lot of interaction between these two characters until after everyone else is dead. Like they don't actually talk to each other much.
Not really.
I mean, Sarah doesn't really talk to anybody except for Beth.
Yeah.
But like, even though they're not talking, their individual arcs really reflect each other in the way that mirrors. Yeah. The mirroring of like Juno raises her right hand while Sarah's raising her left. You know, they're mirrors, not the sames, but like not opposites either.
Yeah.
Reflections.
Yeah.
And like, I just want to talk about my favorite example of this is like how they become killers because they do it in like these exact opposite ways.
Okay.
Juno gets the first kill of a crawler.
She does, yes.
But then this is immediately followed by accidentally killing Beth.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Sarah's first kill is to mercy kill Beth.
That's right.
That's her first kill. And then it's immediately followed by being attacked by a crawler and having to kill it. So they have like this literal inverted experience of having to kill, all centered around Beth.
They both get to kill Beth.
They both get to kill Beth.
Poor Beth.
And like, I kind of want to give Juno's actress, Natalie Mendoza.
Yes.
I think part of why I really took to Juno and like want to defend her is that I think that she's a good actor. Like the way Juno's face turns from like prey to predator. She has the moment where she decides she like sees a crawler in the distance and she goes into like hunter mode and you see it on her face and it's like cold and almost like competitive or something. Like she's going to take them down. Whereas like Sarah, after her first kill, we get her do that huge scream where she just like lets everything out and has this super emotional, like full-throated response to it. Like the exact opposite.
She's just got a lot of feelings. She's got to let them out. Yeah.
And then like even the way they kill is different where like Juno's always using her ice pick.
She loves
her
that ice
action.
pick.
It's like sharp. Yeah. It's a little distance. She uses it as like a throwing weapon sometimes.
Yeah.
Even when she uses her hand, it's like to snap a neck really quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas Sarah is like super up close and personal with her kills. She's like really passionate with her kills. She uses...
What does she use?
She bludgeons Beth with a rock. And then she bludgeons some of the crawlers with like... She uses like antlers to like stab at them and like bones. Whatever she can get a hold of is what she uses to kill things. And she like stomps on one of them. She gouges one of their eyes out.
Yes, that was so satisfying.
Like the way she does it, it's like it takes longer and it's bloodier than anything that Juno does.
It's really, it is really up close and personal.
Yeah. As an aside, also in that moment, just talking about mirrors, I do like we get that one female crawler.
Yes.
What is that? Which I think is just to be another mirror to Sarah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, because it comes out and like it finds that its kin has been killed.
Yeah.
And then it like does that grief and rage scream kind of like Sarah does. And then Sarah has to kill it.
Goes for Sarah.
Thus killing her own grief and thus reawakening her desire to be alive, I guess. I don't know. I feel like they were going something there.
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Juno and Sarah.
Yes.
I don't know. About the same time in their journeys, they get to have this hero moment where like Juno comes in clutch to save Becca and Sam. And then like, which again, Natalie Mendoza, I just think she's really good where like she has that killer mask on and then Becca says something about like being really happy that Juno's alive. And you see Juno's like mask kind of break for just a little bit and she starts to cry and it's like really heartbreaking. And I think she pulls it off. Versus Sarah, around the same time in her journey, saves Juno, pulls her out of the water. And she is like so cold and emotionless. Like she's sort of become the Juno and Juno's sort of become the Sarah.
Yeah.
Where Juno is now feeling things and being upset.
Yeah.
And Sarah's like closed off.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't betray the fact that she asked Juno if what happened to Beth. And like doesn't let it slip that she knows what happened to Beth.
Right.
Like she's become the liar and the one who's withholding. It's like this total switch that happens. And it's because they needed to like go through these transformations so that they could like approach each other as new people and like finally deal with their old traumas. And it's like only then that we can have their team up Which again has Sarah doing that more brutal fighting style, you know?
Right, and then they have
she like fully bites one of the crawlers.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and then that's when we have that scene when it's just the two of them now.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we finally have that scene that like would probably be really cool
if I could fucking see it.
If I could see it.
I know, I was trying to figure out
wasn't so
exactly
choppy.
how they kill people because I think there is one moment, like one point Juno kind of does bludgeon one of them, and at one point Sarah does use an axe. Mm-hmm. So it like almost goes against my thing, but also not, because they only do it once, and it's sort of that like yin yang thing where there always has to be a bit of the opposite in the self.
Right.
You know, they are always connected. They're always revolving around each other because it's all, this whole movie is just leading up to their final showdown. Like that's what the movie is actually about.
Yeah.
Where Juno is the liar and the cheater.
Yeah.
Even though she's the one who actually came back for Sarah and like refuses to leave without Sarah and is like doing everything for Sarah. And then we have Sarah who's like the virtuous wife or whatever, who actually kills Juno. And so it's like this weird kind of like switch thing that's happening where now Sarah is the one who's leaving people behind to die, just like Juno did.
Because she doesn't actually kill Juno. She like
leaves her behind to die, just like she thinks Juno did to Beth.
Yeah. She wounds her. But like not even fatally like Beth gets wounded. Like she just like goes like
for the
sticks
leg.
her through the calf or something.
Yeah, so she can't run away.
Yeah.
So that way she is going to get eaten by the crawlers. Like there's no way she's not. It's definitely a death sentence, but it's like a slow one.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because Sarah's getting like revenge, and she does it with Juno's necklace in her hand, so Juno can see it and know why she's doing this.
Yes,
but they still don't really talk about it.
No,
and I do think there's a moment with Juno where she's like, the look on her face sort of seems like she accepts it. She's like, "Yes, this is the punishment I deserve. I will stand here and like fight these crawlers and draw them away from you."
Yeah,
I almost wonder if part of her is like, "Yeah, I'll be the bait so that Sarah could get out because all I care about is Sarah surviving." You know, because like the last time we see her, she's like axe raised, ready to just like take as many of them down with her as she can.
Yeah.
Like as atonement or something. And then it ends up with Sarah being the one who feels guilty because the last thing, at least in the American version that we see, is her hallucinating Juno as like dead in her car with her.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's true.
So like this whole time Juno is only thinking about Sarah, and now finally at the end, Sarah is only thinking about Juno. So it's just it's well mirrored.
That is interesting.
That's it. That's my little spiel.
Did you perchance, did you notice like mirroring between any of the other characters?
You know, I thought about it because I was thinking that maybe there was something with like Beth and Holly in the sense of them being sort of like the right-hand women to Juno and Sarah.
Right, yeah.
And they are very opposite people, where Beth is very clearly like, she has the line about like, I'm an English teacher, not a Tomb Raider. Whereas Holly's like, I'm going to be as much of a Tomb Raider as I possibly can. Oh, yeah. But I'm not sure.
And then there's that part where Holly is like, this cave's a lot cooler than I thought it would be. And I was like, Holly, that should be your first hint. Yeah, that's not the cave.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and also like, I feel like they should have kind of, I don't know, do you think they filled Holly in? Because she's just like Juno's protege, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And then like,
I know, I wondered, like, did they tell her like, hey, by the way, maybe be careful with what you say around Sarah because she lost her whole fucking family?
Literally a year ago.
Because there's the one line where Holly, for some reason, says that she's like not dating anybody right now, but she does want to have lots of babies.
Yeah.
Which is a weird thing for somebody to say.
It is a weird thing.
Especially somebody who's like clearly dyke coded.
Yeah.
Not that dykes can have want to have lots of babies, but just like, I don't know.
It is weird.
I don't think they were doing it as a subversion of the trope. No. And to give her character depth.
And
it was just sort of like, because women must want to have babies.
And Holly is the one who's like, Borum Caverns. I think you mean boring caverns. It might as well have a gift shop. And it's just like, but Holly, don't you understand that this trip isn't for you? Like,
right.
Isn't this for Sarah?
I know, but
and you're just along for the ride, man.
I think they just never told her because she has that line about babies and Sarah gets this look on her face.
Yeah.
But like Holly is oblivious.
Yeah, no one filled, again.
Because the lack of communication. Yeah, maybe Holly would have acted a little differently.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fucking Holly. I don't know why we're back on Holly.
I don't know why either. I think I just had some stuff. I was like, oh yeah, I have other stuff I wanted to say about Holly.
Fucking Holly.
Are you ready for me to tell you about The Descent 2?
Yeah.
I can't wait, especially after everything you just said. You set me up so perfectly. So, The Descent 2, I think it comes out in like 2009, so it's several years later. However, it takes place 2 days.
2 days.
After the events of the first film.
That's not long enough.
It's not long enough. So, Sarah's back, played by Shauna McDonald again. And she finally gets herself to a hospital.
God.
And So obviously it has been noted that these women are missing.
Oh, good.
And they are following the
fucking
flight plan
that Becca rightfully put in.
And they're coming up empty-handed, obviously. And then so Sarah kind of like comes out of nowhere. All of a sudden, Sarah is like, fucked up, but like out of the cave, and like everyone else is missing. And so there are two law enforcement characters. I think he's a detective.
I do got to give kudos to the First Descent for not having any law enforcement characters.
They make up for it. They make up for it in the second one. There are two cops. I think they're meant to be detectives. Vanes and Rios. And Rios is a woman of color, and she becomes Sarah's new mirror.
Oh.
Because
Sarah can't exist as herself.
No. So
she's nothing.
Rios is a working mom. She has a kid who's about Sarah's kid's age, right? So it's like that. And and Sarah is just so obviously not well that like she's asking where her daughter is, and Rios has to tell her like, your daughter died. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So the doctor has the audacity to say to these law enforcement officers that Sarah's only injuries are cuts and bruises.
I mean, maybe technically, maybe.
So like, it's just really interesting that this doctor is only taking into account physical injuries.
Yeah, I would get a therapist involved. I would get her some sort of psyche valve,
and not exhaustion or trauma or anything like that.
She skipped lunch.
She skipped lunch.
She's got to be low on fluids. We hardly see these girls drink water, if at all.
It's true. So Sarah is almost quite literally pulled from her hospital bed to help find the others. The law enforcement officers are like, we need your help. Because the reasoning is that apparently Juno is the niece of a senator.
That's so useless.
They're
That's
kind
so
of like pulling out all the stops, like, we have to find these missing women because Juno is the niece of a very important
Juno matters, because everything is about Juno.
And also the other ones, yes. So
even though Sarah's like, they all fucking died. And also there are creatures down there.
And she is like straight up like effectively nonverbal. Like Sarah
and they're gonna make her
not okay.
And they're going to make her go down into this cave where all of her friends just died?
Yeah, 2 days after getting out of the cave.
No.
2 days later.
No.
Also, the authorities seem concerned that she killed Juno. They're like, they think she has something to do with Juno's disappearance, which she kind of does. But then why make her go back into the cave? Because then you don't have a sequel. We do get a good old fashioned harbinger of doom. There's this old Appalachian local named Ed, and he tells this whole story about how his granddaddy was a miner, and his granddaddy...
Is he the one who left behind all the gear? That granddaddy?
I don't know. He's a miner, not a caver.
Oh, okay.
So that granddaddy and a couple of his friends tap into that new cave system.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, the bosses of the mining company say, okay, Ed's granddad, why don't you go check it out?
Oh, I think they're supposed to be the people from that are dead.
And then, they are never found again.
Yeah, it must be the same people with their old gear that was left behind.
Ed's kind of the harbinger of just like, I wouldn't go down there if I were you, you know. And then so this is the group that is...
As if Sarah is not enough of a harbinger to be like, don't go down there.
Yeah. I know, right? No.
God forbid we listen to women.
No, we need an old Appalachian man named Ed telling a story about his granddaddy. So this is the group that ends up in the cave, like that does the descent again. So there's
just two random law enforcement people.
Hold on, yeah, the two random law enforcement
with no caving experience,
right? So and then Sarah, and then they have, I don't fully understand.
I hope some sort of caving expert.
Yeah. So there are 3 other like rescue.
Okay, good
people.
Otherwise, what the fuck are we doing? Why the fuck 2 random detectives are going into a fucking cave?
It doesn't make any sense. So there's like the main rescue expert. His name's Dan. And he has 2 assistants.
Why are we inviting boys?
Greg and Kath. There's a lot of boys in this movie. Yeah. We've got Greg and we've got Kath. And Kath is, or Kath is interesting because she is like established as being in a relationship with Dan. But Greg never stops flirting with Kath.
Because we got to have the cheating element.
I guess. But like,
it's a callback,
in
you see.
front of Dan?
Maybe they're okay with it.
Yeah,
maybe they're showing what ethical non-monogamy looks like.
Because maybe Dan's like, it's cool, I'm still the boss.
Yeah.
Because like he is like in charge of these two people.
I feel like this would have been a better opportunity to have all women. Because it would have been
way
like,
better opportunity.
Oh wow, it's a cool rescue team of all women.
Yeah,
and these two
female law enforcement officers,
yeah.
the rescue team of all women. Absolutely. So
it's like they can't imagine a world where there would be a rescue team and cops that are all women.
Exactly.
Like, sure, a group of friends, yeah, they could be all women, but like people with jobs.
Yeah, and responsibilities. Yeah. So Vanes, the Rios is a woman of color, and Vanes is just an old white guy.
Yeah,
and
of course. Who's going down into a cave?
He's going down into and he
does he have heart problems?
No, but he has a gun. And the caver dude, Dan, is just like,
no.
There's no reason for a gun down there. Like, a gun going off down there would be like a stick of dynamite. Like, we would really be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And Vane says, my gun stays with me. When
listen to the fucking caving professionals.
Nope, not Vane's. And so Rios is like, I'm going to keep mine in the truck. Like, I can take yours too. And he's like, and then, of course,
that's why you don't invite boys.
This is direct foreshadowing. That literally happens.
The gun
he shoots his gun off in the cave, and there's a collapse.
Mm-hmm.
So, but also Vanes has a very interesting line. He says, "I've still got missing girls down here."
First off, they're women,
and I was like, they're women, yeah,
and also they're not yours.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, Vanes. Okay, so. Obviously, over the course of this incredibly stressful expedition, Sarah freaks the fuck out.
Because she should not be in this fucking cave.
No, and she...
Like, why they think she would even be able to locate where her friends died, considering the amount of trauma she's been through.
And not only...
And how disoriented she was.
Not only that, but over the course of the film, they actually do, like, retrack their steps, and they find everyone's dead body.
Wow.
Including Sam, who is still hanging from the ceiling of a cave. And I'm like, damn, Sam, you go. So Sarah, like, I can't remember under what circumstances, but she has a freak out, obviously.
Yeah. And is she still hallucinating a bunch too, or is that just gone?
Yes.
Okay.
And so she runs off, and she is not seen for quite some time. Rios goes after her, and like, so then there's a split up, obviously.
Because that's what's got to happen.
Yeah, so it's Rios and Sarah. It's Vanes is by himself for a little bit, and then it's like the three caver people, because all of the rescue people die first.
Okay.
And Rios ends up with Sarah. So like they're
by
Rios
crawlers killing them.
By crawlers, yes, yes.
Because crawlers are in this movie.
There are crawlers in this movie, yes. And you can tell that they got a much bigger budget. The lighting on the crawlers is much better. They're like, the creature design is like way more advanced. You can totally tell they got way more money.
Did they just like not believe Sarah about the crawlers existing?
I think, yeah. I think they just didn't believe it.
Which is, honestly fair. But maybe don't send this woman you think is crazy back into the cave?
Yeah. So they get split because there's a cave in. The rescue people die. Rios ends up with Sarah, and like again, these characters are paralleled because Sarah's like, I literally did this 2 days ago. And
I got this.
And Rio's like, oh, what?
Let me just make this torch out of old bones like I did last time.
Yeah. But then there's a huge twist.
Oh.
Juno is still alive.
Juno
is still alive, and her leg is suspiciously fine. Like, she's, like, it's wrapped up, and she's, like, kind of limping.
But it's not, But it's like Beth with the ice axe through the neck.
Yeah.
She should not be able to talk. Juno should not be able to walk.
Yeah. So, Juno has been stuck in the cave for a couple of days, and she
somehow
has
surviving.
Found a way out.
Well, she already knew where the way out was, because she found the arrows. She was the first one to do that.
Yeah, so she has found a way out. But so she like figures out a way, to get them out. But of course, Vanes dies. He gets attacked by a crawler. And Juno also does actually die for realsies this time.
And she actually existed and wasn't a hallucination.
She existed. So let me break this down for you.
What's the point of having Juno back just to have her die again?
Sarah tries to rescue Juno from a crawler.
Okay.
But it like slashes Juno's stomach and like mortally wounds her.
Okay.
So Sarah then kills the crawler, in revenge.
Right, yeah.
And then
just like Juno did when Holly died.
And then Juno dies in Sarah's arms. After Sarah, for some fucking reason, still has the Love Each Day necklace.
Just in her hand.
In her hand. Because it was
never put it down.
It was next to her in the hospital bed.
Oh my God.
When she's in the hospital. It was like in a little pan of her belongings.
Their love. Their husband.
Yeah. And so like...
Weird.
Yeah, so she has the necklace with her, and she gives it back to Juno.
Like
as Juno is dying.
Like she's okay now? She's forgiven her or something?
Don't know. As Juno is dying in her arms.
Enjoy my husband in the afterlife.
She gives her the necklace back and like puts it in her hand and like gives it to her.
What was even the
as
point?
she dies.
Oh my God.
So, then, of course, Juno's dead, and Rios and Sarah are the only ones who are still alive now. And again, even more crawlers arrive because, that's
what happens.
What this movie's like. And so Sarah basically becomes the new Juno and like draws attention to herself by like screaming and being hey, come over here, to give Rios a chance because Rios's daughter is alive.
Oh my God.
Basically.
The worst thing that could ever happen to Sarah has already happened, so she might as well fucking die.
She might as well just die. So Rios...
Also, her girlfriend just died, so she needs to go join Juno.
I guess. Rios escapes from the cave.
Okay.
And she tries to call for help. Like, she gets out. However, she is then knocked unconscious by Ed.
What?
Ed comes back around.
Why?
Ed knocks her out with a shovel, and he drags her back down to how she got out of the cave.
Because he's working with the crawlers?
I guess?
Is this some sort of like offering or something?
And then but like he doesn't put her back in the cave. He just like drags her back to the cave entrance that she just came out of. And then like the last scene is like one last little jump scare of like a crawler like emerging from the cave
to like get her.
To like get her. And then the movie's over.
What the fuck, Ed?
I know. And
that makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, and I'm like, and so it's like, wait, so is Ed...
Why?
In cahoots with these
What does he get from that?
What does he get?
I mean, are the crawlers intelligent enough to know that they're in an alliance with him and leave him alone?
Is he trying to cover up any evidence? Of, like, because if Rios makes it out, then Rios can tell the story or something.
But, like, why would that affect Ed?
I don't know. It was not a good movie.
That doesn't make any fucking sense. It was. I'm so confused. I'm so perplexed.
It was not. Watching it will not make it any clearer. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that we did Literary Corner first, though.
Because it does, yeah.
Because, there's like...
the Juno Sarah thing.
It's like
the Rios thing.
Yeah, the Rios, like, becomes like... Yeah, Foil Junior, basically. Yeah. And like, I actually do think that Rios like actually does also kind of begin to hallucinate, like hearing her daughter or something like that. Okay. Yeah. And so like, it's just.
But once again, the hallucinations don't pay off because Juno is actually there.
Yeah. And so it's just like.
Why any of it?
Why? Like, again, it's like going back to Paranormal Activity where like every reason they have for recording what's happening makes sense. It's like nothing about this cave expedition makes any sense.
No, not in the world of the movie.
Law enforcement officers
not in the real world. Yeah.
Why are they making Sarah go back down? Why does that doctor say that all of her injuries are like scratches and bruises?
Yeah.
Like, why is that doctor so unaware?
Of
trauma, of emotional trauma. Oh my God. So that was The Descent too.
Yeah, let's not watch it.
No, I already did. It's fine.
Stupid.
Yeah, it was not good.
And honestly, this movie, okay.
It's okay, yeah. It's just so interesting to me how like well received it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe our standards are too high.
Maybe. That's honestly probably fair. My standards are too high, and like again, I just think there's something happening here about like them enjoying, like them being like the audience for this film, and like the people who keep it in very high regard is like enjoying this film with like an all-female cast, but like again, these female characters being written by men. And so it's just like, oh, we can say we do enjoy this film of all women, even though there's like...
They're all these very, like, quote-unquote masculine women.
Yeah.
Who are, like, originally written... Some of them originally written to be men.
Written to be men. And, like... yeah, they basically feel to me like female characters written by men.
Yeah.
All the way. Straight through. That's what it's like to me. And so that's
by men
like
who have met actual female humans.
Oh, unlike Eli Roth.
Eli Roth. Yes. Who has never met a human woman.
Which Eli Roth movie should we do next? Well, Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Clown. Clown's a good one.
Okay, wow.
Got Peter Stormare in it. Anyway.
We're not done with this one yet.
We're not.
I think let's just do a quick archetype.
I mean, we've kind of already said it, haven't we?
I mean, I think they're kind of all athletes.
They're very, very all athletic.
Becca's a fucking beast.
Yes.
Not only that, but like her very athlete behavior of like putting the risk on herself and like exerting the physical strength so that other people can get out is like very athlete behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, Juno, like, again, she's the one who kind of gets them into that shitty situation, but then, like, does rise to the occasion and be like, I'm going to make sure we get the fuck out.
The very athlete behavior in how she accidentally kills Beth in that way of, like, shoot first.
Yes.
You know, when you're always shooting
reaction,
first, then you can accidentally hurt your own allies.
Yeah.
I mean, there's occasional scholar behavior. Sam is kind of our scholar as the doctor. Beth has her scholar moments with the cave painting and stuff.
Yeah, Becca and Sam, I think, also kind of have scholarly tinges to them.
Yeah, Becca, though a lot of Becca's scholar stuff is like knowledge of caving. So it could kind of go both ways with the athlete and the scholar. There is the moment where Sarah is like
Sam's a doctor.
Sarah is very like in that pit of death or whatever, where she's like kind of quietly takes stock of her resources and like makes herself a torch. That maybe is also kind of scholarly.
Yeah.
I don't know. But like, yeah, it's all very athlete behavior.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, happens. Holly's our first kill, but she is in no way the whore of the movie.
I feel like if we're talking about transgressors, it's Juno.
Right, yeah. But the only person who I could say is the whore of this movie is Juno.
Right, yeah. But again, she doesn't die first. Holly dies first.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't really, so that doesn't really track.
Yeah.
Holly, I think we were saying off mic, Holly could maybe be our closest one to a fool.
Yeah, she's quite foolish.
She has that kind of like...
She's kind of got that
kind of outsider behavior that fools sometimes have and like...
And that like walking off a cliff energy.
Yes, of the tarot fool. Yeah. Literally, she walks off the edge of the
literally,
camera into a hole. Like
true.
she literally does that.
Fucking Holly.
Blindly going ahead. Yeah, very out.
Yeah, because none of them seem like, I mean, they're all kind of like, again, drinking those generic beer bottles.
Yeah, but none of them are like
really interested in any kind of like intoxicant or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then again, I mean, Sarah's our final girl, so she's technically maybe our virgin, but like I said, I think she's more of like a Madonna whore dichotomy. Like she doesn't have virgin vibes.
No.
She's the good mother.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that she was married with a kid. So like,
I mean, obviously she's had sex, but but in that very, heteronormative within the realms, within the spheres of like family procreation kind.
Yeah, so that's
like an acceptable kind.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, so once again, despite us overcorrecting from The Thing, we ended up with another movie that was basically just all athletes.
That's probably why they don't survive.
I mean, it did make me wonder, do you think, because these women obviously did not act like a team. They acted like friends who weren't even very good friends. Do you think they would have done better against The Thing because they know each other better than the men of The Outpost do?
Yes, definitely.
I think they would have. I mean, I think they would have. I mean, they have a doctor, so they're good on that.
Yeah.
I think Sam would have figured out some sort of blood test.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they maybe would have been able to actually talk to each other.
Yeah,
and just, like
we
stay
know
together.
For a fact that some of them have slept with some of the other ones.
Yeah,
right.
They've gotta.
Like,
none of them were sleeping alone. None of them were sleeping in their own rooms.
That's true.
I don't think they left each other alone very often. I mean, there are a few times when Sarah wanders off by herself, and I don't know why they allow that. But like, I think they would have thought to employ the buddy system. Unlike the men of the Outpost.
Yeah.
However, the men of the Outpost in a fucking cavern against some fucking like Neanderthal things.
They would love it so much.
Oh, they would have destroyed those crawlers. Oh, they would have had no problem.
McCready in a cave in Appalachia. Oh my
God. Yeah, Childs.
Childs
Childs would have. Oh, he would have.
Yeah.
He needed that outlet, I think.
Yeah.
I think
You're
they would have been
right.
fine. Some of them not so well off, but a good handful of them would have made it out of that cave, no problem.
Yeah.
This has been Deep Thoughts, Shallow Plots, and next month we are going to be watching Bodies, Bodies, Bodies for
Yes.
Pride Month.
Pride Month.
We want movies with actual lesbians.
Yeah, we wanted gay text, not gay subtext.
Yes, we considered some gay subtext, but we were like, no, let's actually do the gay shit.
Yeah, well, or rather, we also considered Babadook.
Yes, for the jokes, the memes.
But see, here's the thing, Katie, is like the Babadook is.
I'm afraid I'll be scared of the Babadook.
It's a creepy movie.
I think the Babadook will scare me.
Yeah,
like I don't think any Yas queening is going to save me from being afraid of the Babadook.
It's not. Yeah, so maybe later, but not this Pride Month.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram at Deep Thought Shallow Plots.
Apparently, our
YouTube
audio is on YouTube.
Our audio is on YouTube. Some of our episodes are on YouTube. I'm having issues. I'm gonna work them out. Just you wait.
No worries. Thanks as always to Sound Guy Matt. Until next time, love each day.
God no.